Welcome to Register, the podcast of the Catholic Register, where we'll be taking a look at the stories that graced all of our platforms over the past week. I'm Mickey Conlon, editor of the Register, alongside associate editor Quinton Amundson and reporter Luke Mandato. This week's episode is brought to you by Connaissance Travel and Tours. Connaissance invites you to join them on an 11-day pilgrimage to Medjugorje in May, fully escorted, round-trip airfare, local tour escort, and more. Visit connaissancetravel.com. Still early in the new year, guys, but what a year it is shaping up for Martyrs Shrine in Midland, Ontario, a couple hours north of Toronto, in the beautiful Huronia region of central Ontario. The National Shrine to the Canadian Martyrs is entering its 100th year in 2026, and there's going to be plenty of centennial celebrations throughout. And I know, Luke, you had your chance to talk to Father John O'Brien from the shrine, and he told you about, it's a double celebration. So I hand it over to you. Let us know about your conversation with Father John.
Yeah, thanks, Mickey. It was a great conversation. I've spoken with Father John. I feel like a couple times every couple of months. It always seems like there's something going on up there in Midland at Martyrs Shrine, but this year especially, as you alluded to, a very special year. This year is marking 100 years of the physical shrine of Martyrs Shrine celebration, their centennial celebration this year. The community there is also celebrating 400 years since the arrival of St. John de Brebeuf in Huronia as part of his mission. So throughout this dual year of celebration, or this year of dual celebration rather, they're going to be doing lots of different events and commemorations to mark 2026 up there in Midland. We can get into some of the things that they do year round, but just some of the things to look out for this year and that readers will see in the article. There's going to be their typical gala that they hold in June this year, of course, with some more focus on the centennial celebration, the 100 years. Mass with Cardinal Frank Leo is going to be taking place shortly after. And then a number of different commemorative events taking place. They're issuing a special coin for the centennial. Former shrine director Father Knox has done a sort of picture-esque coffee book style table, recounting some of the history of the shrine there and the history of the martyrs. Lots of exciting things going on. It's all detailed in the article, but just great to see that they're being able to take advantage of not only 100 years of the shrine itself, but the fact that it lines up with the 400 years since Brebeuf's arrival. It's a very exciting time, and even though it's still early, like you said, Mickey, Father John's excitement was very notable through our call that we had earlier this week.
Well, we all know, especially here in Toronto, the importance of the shrine to the local diocese, but also to the Canadian Church. We've talked about this in past podcasts. We were talking about pilgrimages, and the shrine came up. And I've made numerous pilgrimages there with family. We had a cottage up in the area for many years. But back in our school days, we would make a pilgrimage with our class up there, and as it was always, of course, you're a kid. You anytime you got to go on a trip, you loved it. But it was a great trip, but you really did learn something about the faith and about the Canadian faith. So it was well worth it. And I know, Luke, you said you haven't been up there yet, so unfortunately, and I was kind of surprised that I guess the schools don't do it as much as they used to. So, but I know you're going to promise me that you're going, right?
Absolutely. It was one of those things. Yeah, I hadn't really even heard about Martyrs Shrine as a location. Maybe that's just poor research on my part before I had begun writing here with the Catholic Register. But I will promise you, Mickey, that I intend to be one of the more than 100,000 that make it up there every summer when they're in full swing this year. So looking forward to it.
It's well worth it, and quite the history it's got to it. And of course, one of the greatest parts of it was Pope John Paul II's first first trip to Canada. He was up there, and they've got the papal stage there that is where he celebrated Mass, and now that's where I'm sure. Well, in fact, I know for a fact Cardinal Leo has actually said Mass up there in the past. All the Cardinal Ambrosic, Cardinal Collins all have it's there, and there's always things. The pilgrimages, there's so many that go every year, and the biggest ones, of course, are the ethnic groups that go up, and in particular the Polish and the Filipinos. They're particularly large ones. So I know you've written about them in the past, Luke. So maybe you get to join them this year.
That's the hope. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a little humorous story from when we cottaged up there about, and it goes back to Pope John Paul II's visit. I didn't actually go to the celebration at the shrine then, but my brother and sister went. And of course, they had to buy the souvenirs and the knickknacks to bring back to my parents. So, of course, there was the calendar, the special calendar, a real nice one that they bought for my parents. And of course, Mom, she hung it up in the kitchen. And it didn't matter that it was for 1984. It stayed there right till the day we sold the cottage, probably 15 years later. But we would, we'd be doing those cottage things, and I'd be sitting there with my buddy Tim, and we'd be sharing those adult beverages, and he'd look at me, he says, I can't do this. I can't be sitting here having a beer with the Pope look at me. So he'd go and he'd grab it, and he'd flip it around so that the Pope wasn't looking at him, and he'd get to enjoy his beverage in peace. So, as I say, just keep going up there if you got a chance. The shrine is a great place to see. It's a great symbol of the faith in Canada, and something as readers know, and a lot of this is from Quinton's reporting over the last few months, is that the faith remains under attack at home and abroad. And Quinton, I know this week you have done a story on someone that's stepping up in defense of the faith. There's a couple, three court cases coming up soon. So how about you tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, absolutely, Mickey. And really 4 cases, because our friends at the BC Catholic also reported on an important case out their direction with, freedom of conscience rights in faith-based hospitals. But yes, I had an opportunity to catch up with the Christian Heritage Party. They're going to court on February 3rd against the city of Hamilton to really, validate and uphold their rights to do advertisements that are in line with their convictions. And the advertisement was 2023, and it was a simple thing called, woman, an adult female. And I mean, that was the statement that they made, but it was deemed as, hateful and very harmful to the transgender community. So there were groups that really stood up, and they were able to get a victory, this group that had issue with the ad, at the Hamilton court level. But now the Ontario Court of Appeal, they must have seen that there were some flaws with the way that justice was administered there. So Jim Enos seems to think that there is the law on their side with wanting to uphold the freedom of expression laws. But the one thing, however, is he knows that we're in a context right now in Canada where our charter rights are not being enshrined to the similar degree as it was in the past. And he really was able to relay the stakes of what it would mean if we stepped away from the Christian moral laws that have really guided us for much of our existence as a country. And there was a key clip of audio that he shared with me that I think would be very good for our podcast listeners to hear right now.
What people don't realize that if the Christian biblical principles that formed our law that we have today, pretty much, except for the last 10 years where they've gone sideways on us. If those are gone, then what is the moral ground for law?
Yes, very profound. 10 years. It's just the last 10 years that the courts have decided that the Christian morality is not to be followed, apparently. So it's a shame it's come to this in this modern world. You know, we've got such a common sense concept of freedom of expression, and in this case, our faith has to go before the courts. But we've seen it in as well in the past 10 years, and probably even longer. You know, we've got lawfare that's the church and the faith is very much a target in that, and same with cancel culture over the years, and what a threat it's been to the faith, and it's just going against basic common sense.
I mean, there used to be certain things that you would be able to do, like, for example, there's a couple cases in, originating from Quebec. You know, you'd think that you'd be able to used to have a Christian church host a Christian worship artist, and there wouldn't be any, waves being made out of that. But, it can if you are affiliated with certain individuals that are not very popular in Canada. I mean, like I'm talking about Sean, Foyt, who has been called the mega pastor, but I mean, it was the church and also the Canadian group out of BC that organized the tour of this performing artists that are using the services of the Justice Center of Constitutional Freedom to make these court cases in Montreal and also in Quebec City, but also even more poignantly, our own, Anna Farrow, who's done some terrific pieces over the years in the Register. She really kind of broke the story about how Harvest Ministries International, this, Christian evangelical group, they were told only 3 weeks before they were going to do a conference in a major Quebec City conference center, like, oh, no, you can't go anymore because we're worried that you're doing anti-abortion messaging. And they had to go to a much smaller venue. They didn't get any support with trying to rejig and reconfigure their event on very short notice. So there were things that you used to be able to do, and you didn't think there'd be any issue with Christian groups hosting events in major venues. But now in this landscape, there's a lot of uncertainty. And if certain groups get wind of what you're doing, they may try to stop you from going ahead and doing what you want to do. And that's the reality that we're in the last 10 years.
Yeah. When did the Christian faith become controversial? I guess it's always been somewhat controversial, but in this
now
case,
people have too much time on their hands, Mickey. That's the issue. People have just too much time on their hands. They need something to be upset about, and I guess we're the easy target.
The outrage industry strikes back. Wow. Well, we had, the outrage industry, a little offshoot of it, that in their own way attempted to cancel the faith. And of course, I'm talking about many of the church burnings across the country since 2022, 2021, back in those days. But we've got a good story coming out of that. And again, Quinton, you reported on the church St. Jean Baptiste in Morinville, Alberta, which has risen out of the ashes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, especially appropriate in the Year of Hope, in the last few days of the Jubilee Year of Hope. I mean, that was this very fitting indeed. This community, of course, there was very raw feelings for quite a few months after a suspicious fire took place. But then, very admirably, they were just very fixated on the next chapter. They wanted to move past this tragedy, and they wanted to create a new house of worship that will, really honor the legacy of the original St. John Baptiste. And you have to consider this was a very historic church that was brought forth by the missionary oblates. A lot of French settlers in this community. There's a lot of pride. So when they wanted to do this new church, on budget and on time, making sure there was no debt for future generations. All of those goals, they succeeded, by the way. They wanted to make sure that there were original elements from the old church incorporated into this new beautiful house of worship. So a lot of the old brick, it's being used for pathways. It's being used in the new bell tower. Some of the old wood timbers have been fashioned into the new pulpit and the new altar. And, you know, they're also doing recreations of the old oil paintings that depicted various aspects of St. John the Baptist, of course, highlighted by the baptism in the River Jordan of our Lord Jesus Christ. And they found old stations of the cross, almost exactly like the original ones from a Belgian monastery of all places. So they pull out all the stops to make sure that they could evoke the history, but also look forward. And I mean, there were a few architects who were like, well, no, well, you need a modern church. Like, you know, we can't have a bell steeple because there could be risk of, you know, maybe the church shaking apart. So they said, okay, well, let's compromise. We'll do the bell steeple about 30 meters away. But there was a survey that was done in the aftermath of, the fire, and 80% of the people wanted a traditional church that looked like the original in many respects, and they were determined to succeed. And fortunately for the building committee, they stuck to their guns and they got what they want. And it was just a very emotional experience for the people when they returned for the opening mass around Christmas time. And it's like they stepped through a wormhole. They were back in the original church, even though it looked quite different in many respects. It really seemed like the original, in many respects, rose from the ashes, and that's where people are going to be going to church now, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Well, that's excellent news for Morinville, and I'll tell you, over the years, anytime we've been writing stories about the churches that have gone up in flames, the pictures we've been using have been of Morinville being burnt down, and I'm going to be very happy to never have to use them again. So we'll chalk one up for the faith there. So, and here's another one we can chalk up. I know in these tough economic times that most of us are feeling, and the Fraser Institute came out with a study saying that charitable giving across the board has taken a hit in recent times, except it seems amongst the Catholics. So Luke delved into that, spoke to various Catholic charities across the country. How about you? Let us know what you found there.
Yeah, thanks, Mickey. This, I guess we'll start off just by highlighting that report. So it was a report from the Fraser Institute. It showed that Canadian charitable giving had fallen to the lowest level in about 2 decades, with only 16.8% of Canadian tax filers reporting as having donated to charity. And I think what this story boils down to is this is a prime example of, I go to write something, and I think many journalists have had this, where you go to write something thinking you're getting one story and it turns out to be an entirely different story altogether. So we were initially going to look at, Catholic charities around us and around the country and see how they were dealing with these declines. And it turns out that most of the dioceses and organizations I had spoken to were seeing not only not a decline, but also the opposite, some blossoming numbers in terms of charitable giving for Catholic institutions instead. So it's great to see. I think one of the most important things is when I spoke with Agnes Thomas from Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of Toronto. She's the executive director there. She said that, well, it may seem sort of troubling, reports like this, that they don't necessarily reflect a decline in Canadian generosity or Catholic generosity, but rather, the need for people that want some transparency and some proper reflection in the money that they are donating or the time that they're donating. So she had gone on to say that Canadians do continue to care deeply about the common good, but how they choose to contribute is something that's evolving. More people are looking beyond writing a simple check. They look to offer their time, their advocacy, and even community involvement. So it was very interesting to see that the numbers aren't going down when we look at the Catholic side of things. It was something that Share Life had reported to me. Arthur Peters saying that they're coming off a very successful year. I spoke with people from the Archdiocese of Vancouver out on the West Coast. Donations seem to be staying level, if not improving year over year there, especially for their men's shelter program. Even in some of Canada's prairie areas, the Diocese of Saskatchewan and in Edmonton.
Saskatoon, yeah.
Saskatoon, there you go.
Saskatoon.
All had similar projections with donations looking good year over year and not really a serious decline. That is, of course, to say that all of these institutions and organizations have said that the need still remains, of course, especially when I spoke out there, the Archdiocese of Vancouver. There is no lack in need for support for things like mental health, addiction, homelessness, food insecurity. The needs still remain and the needs are prevalent. But I think when people are starting to look for charities to donate to, they want to know where their money's going. They want to know it's going to a reputable cause. And I think that's something that the Catholic model has inherent to it. You know, when you're giving to Share Life, where your money's going. You know, when you're donating to Catholic charities, that it's going towards exactly what you want it to. So that's probably one of the reasons that while charitable giving may be down overall across Canada for some time now, the same cannot be said for strictly Catholic charities.
And of course, Quinton, I know you've written often about the charitable organizations in Alberta where you are. I guess you're seeing probably, you may not have looked into these numbers, but you're seeing that they're thriving, which, well, I guess that's a kind of a bad word to say. You hate the charitable section to be absolutely thriving, but it shows too much need. But they're out there and they're doing their job, I'm sure you see.
Absolutely. There is a lot of good effort. Like the annual appeal that the bishop does, which is the equivalent of the Share Life campaign done in the Archdiocese of Toronto. They report very strong numbers, and there's a very good cross-section of things. And you look at the impact reports of the various dioceses here, it appears that participation and dollar figure donations are on the upswing the last couple of years. So this renaissance that we're seeing in mass attendance and engagement with the faith does seem to be parlaying into a really good generosity of spirit with a lot of the church ministries. Really good to see.
Good. Yes. Keep on giving, people, and not just opening your checkbooks, but your time. Your time is just as valuable. So, okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I think we'll wrap up this episode of Registered with that. I should give you a little bit of a foreshadow of some of what we've got coming. Of course, the situation in Iran is in flux. We don't know what's going to happen there, but Quinton is looking into one of the kind of surprising aspects where we've kind of found there is the growth of Christianity, which is something you'd always heard about people, Christianity being basically booted out of the Mideast, but there's signs that it's been growing in Iran in particular. So Quinton's going to take a look at that this week, see how that's involved in the uprising in Iran. So, of course, you can keep your eyes open for that at catholicregister.org, as you can for all the breaking news in the Catholic Church. So thank you again for joining us all, and we hope to see you again next week.